Hello, everybody, and welcome to the entertainment headquarters, and of course, welcome to Kaiju Connections, the segment dedicated to all things kaiju from the world of cinema and television. And tonight is a very special night because we are celebrating our good friend here, Mr. Kaiju Enigma Ultra Jake Hall's birthday. And you know, it's a bit early. It's not actually his birthday, but we're busy when it is his birthday, so we're doing this tonight. And it's a film of his choice because I said to him, to celebrate your birthday, would you like to choose a movie? And we'll do it together, and hopefully there'll be a few guests with her, but we're going solo tonight. So the film of choice is none other than Rodan. So, as you know, Rodan is probably one of the most well-known kaiju films beyond um, Godzilla, and it's another Toho classic. And this was our first glimpse of Rodan, the kaiju, who would then become a mainstay of the Showa era and beyond. So, before we get cracking, we have in the chat Gojira851. Good evening. Good evening to you,
What's up,
Gojira.
Godra?
And then we have Kaiju Ricky. He loves me some Rodan, don't we all? So, so Jake, what was it and why was it that you chose Rodan?
Well, out of all the movie reviews that we had done, I've noticed that we had never actually gone in depth and talked about Rodan. So I was like, oh, well, why don't we talk about him? I mean, he was released 2 years after the original Godzilla film
Yeah.
and made his solo debut, which led him to being part of the Godzilla verse throughout the Showa, the Heisei, and Millennium, and even the Monsterverse.
That's right. Boom. There's a couple of glimpses of Rodan from the Monsterverse, and for me, some of his scenes in 2019's King of the Monsters are some of the best scenes in that film.
Oh yeah, I mean, chef's kiss.
Yes. So, can you remember, Jake, your first time seeing Rodan?
Back, excuse me, back when I was probably between 7 and 11. We'll go between that. Uh, on a TV channel called TNT, they would have a special called Monster Vision, and they would
Mm,
have a marathon of old classic uh, Godzilla films, which some of them. But there was one night where it was a double feature, and oddly enough, the double feature were Rodan and War the Gargantuous. Now,
mm,
when I was little, I had finished watching Rodan. Of course, my mom recorded it on VHS back in the day
yeah.
when but when it popped on War the Gargantuous, and when I was little, I was like, "Oh God, no!" And I just turned off the TV after watching Rodan and saw the little bit of War the Gargantuous. Well, little did I know my mom had recorded that as well.
Oh,
So
nice.
so I ended up watching that as well, and I'm like, oh yes, I love this film. But yeah, that was the first time I watched the English dub Rodan, and then they released it on DVD with that Godzilla 5 pack, I think it was, for the Toho Classic, and then I ended up getting this one, as you see right here, the double feature, because it had both the English and the Japanese version. And needless to say, between the two of them, It's kind of a toss up of which one I like better because they're both in different styles. And when I watched the English version, it brought me back to like watching Beast from 20,000 Phantoms and all of that, how they opened the scenery with like the atomic bomb and all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. My first time seeing Rodan was probably a similar way you did. There used to be a thing called Jonathan Ross at the movies. And there was one year he did like this creature feature month. And he basically showed all of the old Showa era films. And at the end of the showcasing all the Godzilla movies, he then started showing the Mr. Vampire films. And I think he showed the first three of the Mr. Vampire films, and then it was a few months after they did another Jonathan Ross special at the movies where he did like something called a Strange Beings month instead of Creature Feature month. And it featured Rodan and it featured Mothra.
Oh, interesting.
And then he showed another couple of movies, but they weren't like kaiju movies. They were like the original Blob and things like that because it was known as Strange Creature Month. And obviously, for whatever reason, they showed the Blob, they showed Rodan, they showed Mothra because obviously, yes, we know them as kaiju.
Yeah.
But for some reason, they called them strange creatures during this month-long special and featured there. They were the only two kaiju films that they showed during that month. And I was probably very much like you. Young was really excited for Rodan. I also felt really depressed at the end because of what obviously happens with the Rodans at the end of the film.
Yeah.
But the version I seen, I think, might have been the English version. And a few years later, when obviously thanks to the internet, I think it was Internet Archive maybe, I was finally able to see the original Japanese version. So, and I have to say, I prefer the original version over the English version, the American version.
I kind of agree with you because, in a way, the Japanese version it shows you more that you didn't see.
Yes.
In the English version.
Yes. Definitely. So let's get cracking and talk a little bit about Rodan. So Rodan is a giant monster of the sky. Radon is also known in Japan. Is a 1956 Japanese kaiju film directed by Ishiro Honda, who basically he is the creator of all things kaiju from the 1950s. Without him, there'd be no Godzilla, there'd be no Rodan, there'd be no Mothra, and the Showa era wouldn't have existed without all the work he did and all the films he directed.
Agreed.
And, and it had special effects by E.G.S. Subaraya. It was produced and distributed by Toho Studios. It is the debut film of this titular monster, Rodan, Toho's first kaiju film to be shot in colour, and one of several giant monster films that found an audience outside of Japan. Rodan would become a staple monster later, crossing over into the Godzilla franchise. The film stars Kenji Sahara and Yumi Shirakawa. Rodan premiered in Japan on December the 26th, 1956, and was released in the United States in August 1957. And we have your friend, my friend in the chat, my co-host most of the time on this channel. We'll have Mr. DJ Anubis wishing you a happy birthday, Jake.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, thanks for watching, Anubis. But yes, this film starts off in like a mining village. But I think the name it's Kitamatsu. Kitamatsu near the foothills of Mount Azo on Kaiusu. Miners Goro and Yushi enter a mine to start their shift before the shaft floods.
Yep.
And you see these guys enter this mine, and obviously it's before it floods, and there's like something strange going on.
Oh yeah.
And when the mine does flood and they go back to the mine later on, they find basically one of the other miners is drowned. Well, he looks like he's drowned in the flooding, but then they also discovered he's covered in like these gashes in his body,
Yeah.
all over his body. When they take the body to like the mortuary to speak to the doctors who examine it, they assume that he's being murdered by somebody.
Yeah, because they think Goro had murdered the guy that he was in a fight with, because apparently these two have gone at it for a third time, according to the film, because apparently they have beef with each other, and
Yeah.
they were on the same cart rail as they were going down into the mine. And it's funny enough that it's those two that ended up disappearing. And then
Yes.
when I think his name was Yuki, I think. Yumi?
I
I
think it's
forget.
yeah.
They pull him out first because he's the first one they saw. And like you said, they take him to the mortuary morgue, and they discovered, it's like, I have never seen anything like this. What kind of sharp object would do this? And
Mhm.
they're sitting here mind boggling. And everybody's thinking, did Goro do this? Did Goro do this? And then
Mhm.
you're introduced to her sister,
Mhm.
who has a love interest with Shigiri, which is the main
Yes.
antagonist. And excuse me. So she's trying to figure out what all's going on and all that, and Shigiri is trying to explain to her that he doesn't believe that her brother did this and all that. Well, after another body turns up, and two of the miners and a cop go
Mhm.
down back into the mine, and
Mhm.
as they're going down, they start hearing noises like rocks falling. Next
Mhm.
thing you know, you hear this like a little chirping type sound, and they're like, "What is that?" And then all of a sudden, the guy, in I swear, the most dramatic way to be attacked, like, ah, 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 and goes down in the water. And then the cops firing. He's like, guy tries to cut the rope, tries to escape, and then he's attacked. And then they end up, all three of them end up going to the morgue, and they're like, what the? Is Goro behind all this?
Mhm. Yeah. Because they originally thought as well that the weapon that's used is like a sword, but they're like, well, how could you snuck a sword down there without kind of being noticed?
Yeah, exactly. Because I mean, they even thought it could have been a samurai sword, a katana.
Yeah.
And so the one of the ladies, that's the wife with a kid, she blames the sister, uh Kaio, I think is her name. Kiko.
Mr.
Going
Tony of
on.
the Dead.
Hey Tony. I think that was her name. But she's in her house and she's crying all that. And the lady's was gonna go in there and confront her, but she was stopped by the others, and that's when Shigiri comes in and tries to comfort her. And as they're doing it, they hear that little chirping sound, and out comes an insect-like creature with pinchers coming in, and yep, just bashing. And then he yells out for help, and they call the cops and all that. Everybody like, and here it comes back. It's like, oh. And what I thought funny was the insect grabbed the mining tools, like you
Yes.
see, and just like, and then it ends up going away, and they start chasing it up the top of a hill that's rocky, and the cops and them are firing, and they got too close, and because of that, got snagged by the pinchers. Like, and you can see the dolls and stuff ragging, and then they come down, check on the men, and they're like, "Well, I think we found our culprit." And then they end up meeting a paleontologist, I think, or some type of scientist who looks at the pictures and basically says this is a dragonfly nymph from a prehistoric era called, and there's two versions to say this name, Mega-Nulon or Mega-Nulon.
Yes.
So they discovered that it is Mega-Nulon, an ancient species back in from the prehistoric era, and they figured that apparently an egg was trapped underneath the mining area where it started flooding, and because of the temperature, it hatched, and you have these multiple Mega-Nulon
Yes.
or Mega-Nulon, excuse me. I keep saying
Yes.
Which
isn't it weird though? Isn't it weird though, Jake? How way back in the 1950s they came up with the Mega-Nulon and the inspiration for this creature, and then many years later in the millennium era they would bring that species back, but in a different way by introducing us to another new monster, which was Mega-Gyrus.
Yeah. And I gotta say, I actually enjoyed the new design of the Mega-Nulon.
Mm-hmm.
I did enjoy. Actually, I liked all the designs for the creatures. To be honest.
Yes.
So, but yeah, it's funny how they took a simple design and just modified it just a little bit, and I thought it was interesting where the jaw would pop out in the Mega-Gyrus.
Yes. Yeah, but so basically they now discover the Mega-Gyrus. Sorry, the Mega-Gyrus, the Mega-Nulon. And they figure that this creature, and so they end up basically hunting it, and it's like, it goes back into the mine.
Yeah.
They decide they're gonna go back into the mine, and this is where they find is it Shingiru?
No, they found Goro like in
And
the rock slide because they've been searching for him and all of that, and they finally found him, and he had died, and that's when one of the Mega-Nulon, Mega-Neuron. I'm gonna just say that because it's easier to pronounce. I'm so used to Mega-Neuron. So one of them pops up, and they're like trying to kill it. Well, Shigaru had an idea to use one of the coal mining carts.
yes, I thought that was a great smart sequence.
Yeah, riding it and have it ram into it. And then after that had happened, and after they're trying to release Garo, an earthquake happens, and rocks fall, all of that. And because of that, Shigaru gets trapped on the other side of the landslide, which you don't see him for a while. And, they're back at headquarters trying to figure out what's going on. And they're going to another place. Well, the road is blocked because of that quake or tremor. It created a cavern and a crater to where it cut off part of the road. And as they're looking, investigating, a reporter, I forgot the reporter's name, and the professor and the police officer, they look down and they see Shirigari had come out. Well, Unfortunately, he has amnesia because he can't remember anything, doesn't know what happened at all. They're trying to get him out of his amnesia, showing him pictures, doing tests, all that. It wasn't until he was looking at. Nah, wait a minute. Hold on. Before that,
There's like there's like a British boat gone missing, and then all these strange events start occurring,
yeah,
like cows are now being lifted or taken and eaten, and all like other things are going on, like two Japanese fighter jets pick up a UFO and on that's flying at like supersonic speed. They try to catch up with it, and they literally just disappear. So there's something flying around between Japan, Okinawa, the Philippines, and it's attacked a British submarine, it's British naval vessel.
and
So
even in Beijing too.
in
So,
Beijing, yeah. So there's something in this area that is just totally bizarre, and they just cannot figure it out.
yep. And it wasn't until a married couple was like, "Oh, we're gonna go take pictures in the little crater near the mountain where there's an active volcano,"
Yes.
and girls just acting like, "Oh, I'm so beautiful. Make sure you get my
No,
good,
nothing
good.
sass.
What's up?" So she's making sure, and the guy's just holding that old timing camera, and he's looking, and then all of a sudden, the girl gets terrified because you hear this like, and they're like running, and as you're seeing them running, you see a shadow of a figure glide across over there,
Yes.
and they end up falling and just going like this, and then next thing you know, all you see is the lady's shoe.
Yes.
And then at the police station and all of that, they're checking having the cameras developed, all of that, and they're like, "Oh, they were such a nice couple. I don't think he would have done that," and all of that. And it's
Mhm.
like, "Oh, the negatives from that camera is here." They're looking at the beautiful couple, and then they
They see
see
like a wing, don't they? They like see the corner of a wing.
corner of the wing and part of the foot too, because you can barely see the three claw thing, and it's like, "Hey, what's that? Let's get it developed right now." And they take the picture to the doctor or the scientist, archaeologist, whatever dude, and they're looking at it, and he's baffled. He's like, so they go to their wall of books, and they pull out a bunch of books, and it was a picture, and they
The pet.
pull
It's
a,
a petrodon, I think.
a pteranodon. Is what it's
Pteranodon.
a picture of a pteranodon.
Mhm.
You would think it would be called Petratrodon, but that P is silent, which is very weird for
Yes.
name of the dinosaur, an old flying dinosaur. So they set the picture of the pteranodon down, and then they set the picture of and they discovered that it matches. And they're like, and the professor's like, it's too soon to clarify until we know Shirigari knows what he's. So now
Mhm.
we get back to where Kaio, I think is her name, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, her name's Kaio. Yes.
Okay, Kaio. Oh, yeah, I was right the second time.
Yeah, well.
So there, and he's just drawing, doodling like a little three-dimensional square thing on a sheet of paper, and she looks in their bird cage, and the birds have laid a couple of eggs, and as he looks down in there, he has a flashback, and you see him in the cavern where all the Mega-Nulon or Nulon are in there.
Mhm.
And that expression, he's looking at a giant egg, and all of a sudden, this egg starts to crack, and he's like, and out comes a baby Rodan. which for a practical effect for the baby Rodan, I thought it was good. I mean,
For a suitmation and that they did was phenomenal.
yeah,
I
and
think for its time.
and the iconic row,
Mm-hmm.
and it starts eating all the Mega-Nulon because it was its snack. And it pretty much ate all of it. And then he's sitting there like, Shigaru. And he finally got his memory back. All of that. And so he goes back, sees everyone, and tells them, yes, this is what I saw in the cave. And the expression on the I'm just gonna call him the professor paleontologist. That's just gonna be easier. He's sitting here, it's like with a unique grin, like,
So
oh,
I'm assuming the one that hatches is either the male or the female. Okay, because this is where I get confused. Because as the film progresses, there is a reveal, which we'll talk about, but then you've got this one that hatches out the egg that's still an infant, and then he's only been missing, if you think about it, a few days, maybe a couple of weeks, when he finally returns, and he's got amnesia. So it makes you think. So baby baby Rodan, aka Tranodon, grow as big as it did and as fast as it did.
well, I think it's because of the radiation that was still looming there. Because in the English version, spoilers alert, folks. Of course, this film's old, so at the beginning, you see them doing all the testing and stuff, and they have dropped many, like the atomic bomb, atom bomb,
Yes.
whatever. And because of all that, and because it has been near Japan, all that radiation kind of stayed in there. So, in a certain part, I think it's because of the radiation that allowed that baby Rodan to grow as quickly as it did.
It also makes you think, though, that is how they hatch, because they had been dormant for so long, the eggs within this volcanic area. And then all of a sudden they hatch, and you've got a Rodan, and it's because of the radiation and the nuclear fallout from bomb testings that's flooded over to this mountainous area, that it's kind of started these eggs that have been dormant for probably millions of years are suddenly now hatch and grow and mutate. But a part of me, because there's no explanation in future films where the third Rodan comes from. In my mind, I'm thinking, yes, he saw a baby Rodan hatch, but a part of me feels like the male and the female Rodan that we're introduced to, they were hovering and flying around because they hatched earlier, and the one that we see in the cave is the Rodan in the future films that somehow escaped the cave, wasn't fully grown, and flew somewhere to mature and grow, and the other two, obviously, we know what happens to them, which we're going to get into.
Oh yeah, that is actually a good theory right there. I mean, that actually could be a possibility.
So I just, because there's no explanation where in the rest of the Showa era where the other Rodan came from, because of presumably we know what happens at the end of this particular film.
Yeah.
So it makes me think them two Rodans had already had that egg, and it was just happened to hatch when he was in the cave with them, and then later on we're introduced to the parents, and then we don't see the baby anymore.
Yeah. So after he had regained his memory, and after they do discussion, the professor wants to go back to the mine to see if they can find a piece of the shell because Shigeru explained to him that it hatched from an egg. So they go back down into the crater in the mine where he was last spotted or where he fell into, and they ended up finding a piece of the shell. And because of that, they take that piece back to the lab, analyze it, and then they give an estimate. And because of that, they figure out the name of the creature. They call it Rodan or Radon in some
Yeah.
Japanese thing. And then they go to back to where the crater is,
Mm-hmm.
and all of a sudden they see trees flying everywhere. Tree flying. So they all stop. The professor, the cop, Shigiri, everyone's like, "What is that?" And out comes one of the Rodans, and it's just like roars and then starts doing like some birds do, like pecking at itself, like it's ruffling up its feathers. And then it ends. One of the police officers tells one of the cops to go to report the situation that they're in, and
Yes.
because of that, the Rodan takes off, flies, and because it's so fast, now that's just scary as hell too.
Yes. If you seen that hovering behind your car, you'd shit your pants.
Yeah. So after uh, the Rodan flies over, the gust of wind just flies it into the little heel like thing, and you see the guy's legs, and it's like, get down, and it flies back. Yep. Ooh.
Boom. Nasty.
And yep. And they know it has supersonic speed. Because of that, Rodan escaping or leaving. If everybody starts pursuing it and starts firing at it, all that, and as they're firing, it dives into uh, a lake after destroying a bridge to hide from them, and then comes back out, and then it flies towards the city. Yep. And as it flies towards the city, the hurricane winds, all that, and then it ends up trying to land, and you see it like land at a train station
Yes.
as everybody's continuing firing missiles, all that. And I thought was really unique is that besides its hurricane winds that it can produce with its wings and its supersonic speed, it actually could breathe out a kind of like how Godzilla did in the original film, a puff of smoke like a breath, but it was a wind breath.
What does that remind you of? It reminds me of what the film that we watched on Friday. It reminded me of Howl from Beyond the Fog when Nebula sucked up the fog and like blasted it out at some sort of weapon.
Yeah. And that was the first time we saw Rodan actually fire uh, like just a stream of air. And yep, like at this train station right here, just landing and all of that. And as it has destroyed and done its hurricane wind, they receive word that a second Rodan is on its way. Now, this is what I thought was interesting compared from the English version because you don't see the second Rodan until this Rodan enters the city. Unlike in the English version, you actually see both of them at the same time.
Yes.
And then it so that was unique in that aspect. And then after that both Rodans end up flying away back to the home. Oh, And as they're surveying the damage and all that, they're trying to figure out how are we going to stop these creatures. Yep, there it is.
Like that was like so. Obviously, the thought that just had the threat of one, but now there's two, potentially three.
Yeah,
Because like I say, in my mind, that baby Rodan disappeared off screen and was the Rodan that we finally see return in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Dragon. Yes. So what happens next, Jake?
So after that, they're trying to devise a plan to somehow. What's up, Big Bad Wolf?
Yeah,
They're trying to figure out how to stop these Rodans. Well, they came up with a solution, and so they come up with a solution. They decided to fire missiles and try to trap the Rodans in their crater that they came out from. Well, in doing so, as they're doing the firing of the at the craters and all that, trying to seal the Rodans in, they caused an eruption from the active volcano. And because of that, and after they continue firing, you see a big puff of lava, lava spew and all of that. And the Rodans escape, but they're just hovering over the smoke and all that. Well, because of that and all of that,
it's like
one
the
of the,
toxic fumes from the volcano kind of must affect them. Like
yeah,
they cannot breathe, and it's like affecting like their vision, and one of the Rodans then falls and slowly falls down into the volcanic area, and basically becomes set on fire and perishes.
yep,
In the second Rodan could have easily flew away, but it chose to not do. It kind of flew and died with its mate.
yep,
And for me, it's absolutely heartbreaking what happens at the end. It's like so, it
yeah,
really was Devin, and it really like for me, it just ended the film on like a sad note.
yeah. And you
And
hear that,
even you hear it roaring, and it's just it's very emotional, and you've even got like you've got like Goro, and you've got I forgot her name. They're standing watching, and you can tell by her face she's feeling very uncomfortable watching these
oh
creatures
yeah,
through no fault of their own. That not their fault that they hatch million years later.
yeah,
And are just trying to live their lives, but obviously they're a threat to to the world and the environment and everything. So, it, in it, she's looking very sad. She's looking very, uncomfortable. He's looking at them like he doesn't know how to feel about what's happened between the Rodans. Part of him like understands why they've done it, but part of him looks at it like this is what's had to be done to protect the human race.
oh yeah. And any other living individual or thing, I mean, they all just, it was like a tense moment and all of that. Shigaru, Kaio, and everybody was just like, and then as you hear the final roars of both, that's when the end credits go. And a fun fact too, apparently during that ending scene, because they used wire to, have the props.
Mm-hmm.
One of the wires actually broke during that, and they just left that in there. And that scene that you saw with that one trying to go up, I guess, yeah, that one. I guess that was the one that its wires broke, and they just left it in
Yeah,
there.
it looks kind of like organically, it looks organically like it's flying, trying to fly out the flames, but it just doesn't have the strength and then just slowly falls back into the flames. It looks
Yep.
realistic to me for what they were trying to do with the film. And I think when they edited it or when they looked at the footage back, they were probably like, we'll just leave it in because it looks so genuine and realistic and we can just add the effects to the scene that we've created. But for me, when it comes to Rodan, it's probably one of the, it introduced me to the character Rodan. And it's a strong film, but the Rodan, despite it being the title and them being they're not in the film that much. They only come into the movie maybe halfway through the film. It's all about this. It's like a who's done it murder mystery, the first half of the film, which I really enjoy. And then it just goes like a total different direction. It becomes a monster film.
Yeah. It's
And
like a build up. It's like we're gonna start out with this little thing right here where there's an argument, a fight, and then strange things are happening. Then you're introduced to a insect like thing, and then you're introduced to the main kaiju character. So it's kind of like a build up to us being introduced to Rodan.
yes. And Rodan, obviously, because of this obviously, because of the success of things like Beast from 20,000 Fathoms and then the success of Godzilla, they introduced it to Mothra and then they've introduced it to Rodan. Toho were kind of continuing that claim of, really wacky monster movies because they knew there was appeal for it. There was it created a brand new genre, the kaiju genre, and they will keep trying to find ways to like build new creatures, like you mentioned before. We've had Mothra, we've had Rodan, we've had the War of the Gargantuans, we even had Frankenstein, and then we had Ghidorah, the three-headed dragon, and so much more. And other studios like Dai created Gamera. We've also had obviously the Ultraman series, but Rodan for me is a one that was always one of the mainstays, and I think it's because he is so popular. He's always kind of returned,
Yeah.
and yeah, some back. Speaking of the production of this film, it uses the mixture of puppeteering, which we talked about puppeteering on how from Beyond the Fog and how it was a dying form. Well,
Yeah.
back in the early eras of the show era, puppeteering alongside miniatures like buildings and giant miniatures was the stable during that period. And so here's some behind the scenes imagery. So
Oh.
that is obviously the suit actor inside the suit.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
here's another. I mean, now look at the size of that suit. It looks gigantic. The wings alone are massive.
Oh yeah. I mean, just if they were just standing on the ground, hell, even with the guy on the ladder, if he was up a little from the tip right there, he's almost as tall as that wing.
There's another image, and that for me looks like the baby Rodan.
Yeah, it kind of does almost.
So this is a behind the scenes image of course, one of the Rodans. That for me doesn't look like a suit. That looks like a puppet, like a manette. And obviously
Yeah.
you've got the one above. Now, this image that I'm going to show you isn't from Rodan, but it is another film. It's from, I think it's Invasion of the Astro Monsters, and it's the scene of Rodan carrying. Oh, actually, I think it's from Ghidorah, the three-headed dragon, where Rodan picked up Godzilla and basically threw him into Ghidorah on the cliff top, and they rolled down into the ocean.
Oh,
Uh,
that is Invasion of Astro Monster. But no, this one is from
yeah,
Ghidorah, the three-headed monster or
yeah,
dragon.
yeah.
Venom.
So for me, we talked about how Rodan, the film, was a mixture of suitmation, puppeteering, and obviously the combination of being on like the lot in Toho and probably in some locations. But this is obviously showing you back in the day how Toho was synonymous with miniatures and puppeteering and suitmation, and it just created this amazing world that is the kaiju genre that we have been happily talking about for the last few years on this channel. And I have a dedicated segment to kaiju. But in all, what's your overall, opinion of Rodan, the character, and the film?
I love the design of Rodan. I mean, I thought it was a unique design that they decided to create. I watched a video on YouTube called Wicketzilla. They normally do kaiju,
Yeah.
and they did one on the show of Rodan, and they were showing some original artwork. And originally, Rodan was supposed to be some type of oh my god, I'm gonna have trouble pronouncing it. Opteopteryx, like the winged bird, where it's that kind of like this and more reptilian. But they decided to go with the more pterodactyl approach.
Yeah.
I love the design. For the first time that I watched it, I fell in love with it. I like you. I like the Japanese version more,
Definitely.
and this film still holds up to this day. After watching both versions of it, it still holds up. Still a good story, very unique story. Uh, love the creature design for the Mega-Nulon, all that. Love the characters. You kind of had sympathy for them. You, you, you felt sorry for Shigaru and Kaio. All in all, this film for me is going to be a 9 out of 10 for me.
Definitely. So for me personally, Rodan is a staple in the kaiju world. I know Toho have their top 5 kaiju, which is Godzilla, Mechagodzilla, King Ghidorah, Mothra, and Mechagodzilla. But I generally feel if there was a top 6, Rodan would be the 6th character.
Actually, Rodan is the top 5. You accidentally said Mechagodzilla twice.
No, did I? I've heard Godzilla, Mothra, King Ghidorah.
Rodan.
And then it's
Mechagodzilla.
No. So for me, Rodan deserves to be mentioned in the top 5, top 6, whatever, because he's such a unique character, and I think he's always had popularity. And I think the Showa era, he was one of the most popular characters in the Showa era, and then of course he gained a new ability and gained more popularity in the Heisei era. Then he returned in the Millennium era. But I think for modern fans, people are biting at the bit for the return of Rodan in the Monsterverse.
Oh, yeah.
And he was teased as potentially being the threat in the first season of Legacy of Monsters, but they changed it to the Ion Dragon.
Yeah.
I would like to see Rodan make a return to the Monsterverse. And how's your thoughts on this if Godzilla Minus Zero, which is coming out later this year, is another success for Toho? Toho are trying to extend on, Godzilla, and they want to have bigger reach with the character, do more films, maybe like they used to do with the Showa era and Millennium era and Heisei era, a film every other year. So wouldn't it be good if the success of Godzilla Minus Zero, they then decided, guess what, we're going to break away from Godzilla. Yes, keep doing Godzilla film, but kind of make a modern Showa era in the time frame of -1, -0 in the 1940s and 50s, and basically do like a modern version of the Showa era, but in that period, and bring back a solo Rodan film.
I would love that. And it was funny too because, Cinecon is this Tuesday. And I
Mm-hmm.
got to thinking because I've kind of read the synopsis that was released of the
Mm-hmm.
story of an ancient monster.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know everybody's wanting either Hedora or Angerus, but what if the director is actually thinking about bringing back Rodan?
So there's mixed feelings. See, you were not going to know till Cinicon, so I'm hoping that's going to be the first teaser trailer where if they don't hint at how Godzilla comes back, they at least hint to who the threat's going to be.
Yeah.
And I know he's teased Hedora because he did say in an interview that that was one of his favourite monsters or Showa era films. Everyone's hoping for Anguirus because of the theme of -1 and because it would be nice to do like how they did -1, which was like a tribute in some ways to 1954, to do like the sequel to be like a tribute or a film similar to that of Godzilla Raids Again. But either way, I'm happy. But I just think if they're all going to push forward at, you know, making the Godzilla franchise from Japan bigger and bolder and do more films every year like they used to do way back in the 1960s, the genuine next step would be is to break away from Godzilla and do solo films with the other kaiju. And the first one I would want to see is either Mothra or Rodan.
And I would actually and shout out to Dan Filming because I know
Mm-hmm.
he wants this. I would like to see this director actually do a retake on Varan.
Oh,
I
Varan will be a good or a Varan versus Rodan film.
Yeah, I mean seriously, because I know Varan didn't do well back then, and it has been in very minor roles and mainly been in like either a video game or comic book and all that.
Mm-hmm.
But I think Veron is deserving of another chance and, kind of maybe tweak his design a little bit, just a little bit. And maybe besides having him being aquatic and, being able to fly, let him have like a special ability like firing a beam like in Godzilla Unleashed.
Definitely. That
So,
would be that would be, or just like when he flies, his wings become like a giant fireball or something.
yeah.
hmm But I've been reading a little bit about Rodan. So veteran writer Ken Numa, who wrote the original story for this film, was inspired by an incident in Kentucky in 1948 when Captain Thomas F. Mantell, a pilot from Kentucky Air National Guard, died in a crash with an alleged pursuing a UFO.
Ooh,
So that was
interesting.
the inspiration for Rodan. While shooting the scenes in which Rodan flies over the Saikai Bridge connecting Saikai and Sesbo in Nagasaki uh, Prefecture, the pulley for which Haru Nakajima was suspended broke. He fell from a height of 25 feet, but the wings and the water, which was about 1.5 feet deep, absorbed much of the impact.
Wow. Dang.
Uh,
And you know what's real funny too? Before you continue, the actual guy, which I think was who always played the monsters. I can't remember his name right off the top of my head, but he was actually in the Rodan suit, and he almost drowned because of the Rodan being in the water.
yeah, I can actually see that. The maiden narration provided by the character Shigyu was dubbed over by actor Kay Luke, with additional voices provided by George Takei, who went on to perform similar voice work for another kaiju film, the 1959 release Gigantus the Fire Monster. And as you know, George McKay became Sulu in Star Trek. So George Takei did voice English dubbing for some of the original earlier kaiju films, including Rodan.
Wow.
And veteran actor Paul Frey's voice-over dubbing was done at Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer Studio in Culver City, California. Each of the 4 voice-over actors dubbed 8 or 9 different voices for this film alone.
Wow.
So the English voice of the character Big Uru is dubbed by George Takei
Wow.
from Star Trek. So that's just a bit of trivia there for you, for those who are Star Trek fans as well as kaiju fans. And George Takei is now 88 years old. So it shows you how young he would have been when he voiced the character Shigeru in the original Rodan.
Wow.
So that's just a bit of information for you. But this has been for my good friend Kaiju Enigma Ultra Jake Hall's birthday. I hope you've had fun doing this with me, and I'm glad you've got to pick a film that you wanted to do, and I hope you've had fun.
Oh yeah, this was a blast.
Yes. So everybody who's watched tonight, thank you so much, guys, and happy birthday to Jake Hall. He's 21 again.
I wish.
So before we go, I'm going to just let people know something that is coming on the channel in the next couple of days. So coming to the entertainment headquarters on the 17th of April, I'm hoping to get with, he's in the chat today, Big Bad Wolf. I'm hoping we're going to get together, if he's available, on that Sunday to talk the Monster Hunter franchise in an episode of education. So that is what I'm going to be doing with him on the 17th. Then this was never meant to be like a kaiju month, but a lot of stuff I've done in April has been kaiju related, just the way it's happened. But then I'm looking forward to this. On the 25th of April, we're going to be doing a kaiju special called Fantasy Filmmaking, where everybody gets to choose who are coming on the stream. A film that is not a Godzilla film, but you get to pick something like Gorgo, Rodan, Space Amoeba, whatever the film may be within the world of kaiju, and then you tell us your ideas and stories for how you would make a sequel, a prequel, or a reboot of that particular film of your choosing. And so it's just a bit of fun. It's just something I thought would put together with a group of great, amazing kaiju fanatics and just have a blast doing it. Because everybody has a huge imagination when you think of these monsters, this world, kaiju. You know, we see all these amazing storytellers do fan fictions or artwork. Even me, myself, have been working on my own little kaiju world and showcasing the art to people. It's just fun. It's just breaks away your day and, it makes life fun. And that's what life's about. So I'm very much looking forward to that. I'm very much looking forward to education on Monster Hunters. So, Jake, is there anything left you'd like to say to the audience and the viewers of Rodan? And what would you say to them if they've never seen Rodan before?
I would say this. If you've never seen the original Rodan, I would give it a shot because it is worth the watch. If you're a fan of the Godzilla films from the Showa era and all that, and other kaiju films from the Showa era, you would definitely enjoy Rodan. And if you haven't seen any of the other films with Rodan in them, scope them out as well because he's a fantastic kaiju.
Absolutely. And as for me, my final thought on Rodan, it's a staple of a film in the Showa era. The Showa era continued during the 1950s to go from strength to strength by bringing in original creatures and monsters and an amazing storytelling. And Rodan is right up there with one of the best, I think, crafted creatures. And like I say, he's a legend. In this film itself, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. I do like Rodan. I get a bit depressed, like I say, with the ending. But, and I do generally believe that Rodan in many ways inspired Gappa and Gorgo because it features two parent Rodans in it. Is it the baby? Is the baby the one that became the Rodan in Ghidorah Three-Headed Dragon that you seen hatch in the cave in a flashback, but then it disappeared off screen and then its parents perished? In my mind, that's what happened.
It's a mystery still left unsolved. Dun, dun,
Yes,
dun.
sure is, because they never actually come and explain where the third Rodan came from. So I'm assuming they just left it up to interpretation for the audience. But yes, this has been Kaiju Connections. Thank you, Jake Hall. Happy birthday. I
Thank
hope
you.
you have an amazing day with your friends and family or whatever you've got planned. But this has been Kaiju Connections. We've talked Rodan. Thank you, everybody, to the amazing people that's tuned in and said hello and for watching. Can't do this without people like Jake Hall. Can't do this without the amazing audiences watching. If you want, give the entertainment headquarters a like, share, and subscribe. And there's going to be more Kaiju Connections in the near future. But like I always say, keep on enjoying your movies, keep on enjoying all things entertainment, but most importantly, like old Mr. Jedi Granville says, keep the
Keep the
kaiju.
kaiju alive.
Yes, kaiju love alive. Over and out, guys. Thank you.